Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a woman named Priscilla. She was married to Mr. Andrew, and they were blessed with a son named David. Although they were happily married, Priscilla always wanted more from her husband. She often complained about money, and expressed her dissatisfaction with the way they were managing life. It was not the kind of life she dreamed of. Their son, David, was a student at a university in the city. He lived in the school hostel, and only came home during holidays. Whenever he returned, his parents were filled with joy, and they shared happy moments together as a family. Mr. Andrew and Priscilla would always advise David to be careful, stay focused, and concentrate on his studies. David would always agree with his parents' advice, and promise to make them proud. In that same village, one day, Priscilla's close friend, Eunice, lost her husband. Priscilla went to console her, deeply saddened by the loss. She spent time with her, offering comfort and support, as any good friend would. However, a few weeks after the funeral, something strange began to happen. Eunice started wearing expensive clothes and jewelry. Her appearance changed, she looked more elegant, confident, and even happier than she had before her husband passed away. Priscilla was surprised and puzzled by the sudden transformation. One day, while staring at her friend from across the road, she muttered to herself, "How can this be possible? Why is Eunice shining and enjoying now that her husband is dead? Wonders shall never end." One day, Priscilla went to Eunice's house, determined to uncover the secret behind her friend's sudden transformation after the death of her husband. Upon her arrival, Eunice welcomed her warmly and offered her a seat. "My dear friend," Priscilla began with a smile, "you have been looking so beautiful and radiant lately. What is your secret? Please tell your friend." Eunice leaned back and smiled. "I will tell you," she said calmly. "After my husband died, someone introduced me to a group called the Widows Club. It's a club strictly for widows only. Politicians, rich men, and charity organizations regularly support us with money and foodstuffs. Ever since I joined them, I have lacked nothing. My life has completely changed for the better." Priscilla's eyes widened in amazement. She leaned closer. "Please, my friend, I want to join the club too. How can I become a member? What are the requirements?" Eunice shook her head gently. "No, my dear, the club is only for widows. You cannot join unless your husband is dead." But Priscilla was desperate. "I know it's for widows," she whispered, "but they don't have to know whether I'm truly a widow or not. You are the only one who knows the truth. If you keep my secret, no one else will find out. Please, I really want to join the club." "I will keep your secret on one condition," said Eunice, leaning forward with a serious look. "Whatever the condition is, I will do it." Priscilla replied quickly, "As long as I can join the Widows Club." Eunice nodded slowly. "You must give me 50% of everything you receive from the club, whether it's money or foodstuffs. If you agree, I will take you there and introduce you as a widow." Priscilla's eyes widened in surprise. 50%. That's too much, but I will do it. I really want to join the club. I need the money badly. My husband and I are just managing. We even sold the only piece of land he had, just to pay for our son's education. I am tired of living this kind of life, so, please, when are you taking me there?" "Tomorrow," Eunice said with a smile. "Someone just gave the club a huge sum of money, and the widows are gathering tomorrow to share it. It is the perfect time to introduce you." Priscilla's heart leapt with excitement. Thank you, my friend," she said. She left for her house that day, full of joy and expectation, already dreaming of a new better life. That night, Priscilla couldn't sleep. While her husband was sleeping, she sat at the edge of the bed, eyes wide open, imagining herself as a member of the Widows Club. In her thoughts, she saw herself dressed in elegant clothes, receiving gifts and money, and finally living the life she had always dreamed of. The next morning, she woke up early, dressed neatly, and hurried to Eunice's house. Together, they made their way to the widows' gathering. When they arrived, Eunice stood up before the other women and introduced Priscilla. "This is my dear friend," she began solemnly. "She just lost her husband not long ago, and has been struggling to care for herself and her only son, who is still in the university." Priscilla lowered her head and began to sob, faking tears as best she could. The other widows were moved by her story. They surrounded her with sympathy, comforted her, and welcomed her into the club with warm hearts. Out of pity and solidarity, they gave her a full share of the money that was being distributed that day. After the meeting, Priscilla was overjoyed. She thanked her friend Eunice repeatedly. "Thank you so much, my friend. I don't know how to repay you," she said excitedly. But Eunice smiled and said, "Don't forget our agreement, 50% of whatever you receive, remember." Priscilla paused, her joy slightly dimmed. Reluctantly, she counted the money, divided it, and handed half to Eunice. Eunice accepted the money with a wide smile. "A deal is a deal," she said, putting the money into her purse. The two women then went their separate ways, each returning to her home, one pleased with her profit, and the other walking away with mixed feelings, caught between excitement and sadness, for the share she gave her friend. When Priscilla reached home that day, her excitement began to fade. As she looked at the money she had left, she felt a sting of regret. 50% is too much, she murmured to herself. After all, I am the one pretending and taking the risk. But she had no choice, at least, not yet. A few days later, as another Widows' Club meeting approached, Priscilla went to Eunice's house so they could go together. As they were getting ready, Eunice looked at her closely and said, "You need to shave your head like the other widows. That's how we all look, bald. It's part of the tradition. If you keep this hair, someone might start asking questions." Priscilla hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, no problem, you can help me do it." Eunice carefully shaved Priscilla's head until it was completely bald. "There," Eunice said, brushing off the final strands of hair. "Now you look just like the rest of us. No one will ever suspect your husband is still alive." Priscilla looked at herself in the mirror and forced a smile. But deep inside, she felt something she hadn't expected, shame. Still, she buried that feeling quickly and focused on what mattered to her most now, the money and the better life she was chasing. After Eunice finished shaving her hair, the two women left together for the Widows' Club meeting. As usual, Priscilla received her share of the money given to the club by a politician, and after the meeting, she handed Eunice her 50%. When Priscilla returned home that evening, her husband was shocked when he saw her bald head. "What happened to your hair?" he asked, staring at her with concern and confusion. "I was having a serious headache," Priscilla replied quickly, trying to sound casual. "So I branched into a barbing salon and shaved it off. I thought it would make me feel better." Her husband nodded slowly, though he remained visibly unsettled. He didn't argue, but something about the sudden change didn't sit right with him. Later that night, Priscilla sat alone, deep in thought. Though she was getting money from the club, she was tired of giving half of it to Eunice. "This is too much," she whispered to herself. "She's collecting 50% of everything I get, and if I stop giving her, she might expose me. But what if I kill my husband?" she murmured. She paused as the idea took root in her mind. "Yes, that's it. If I kill him, I will become a real widow, and no one, not even Eunice, can threaten me or take a share of my money anymore. I will be free." A wicked smile spread across her face. "Wow, Priscilla, you are so smart," she said aloud, praising herself. "Soon, I will be free. No more secrets, no more sharing, just me and the good life." The next day, Priscilla woke up early, humming softly to herself as she moved around the kitchen. She prepared her husband's favorite meal, seasoning it with extra care, and with something far more sinister. When the food was ready, she served it to Andrew with a warm smile. "My dear husband, come and eat. I made your favorite," she said sweetly. Andrew sat down and began to eat quietly, unaware of the evil lurking in each bite. As he ate, Priscilla stood in the corner, watching him closely with a strange smile on her face. Suddenly, he dropped his spoon and clutched his stomach. My stomach! My stomach!" he shouted in pain. Before Priscilla could move, Andrew fell to the floor, gasping. In a matter of seconds, he was gone, dead. Priscilla's smile vanished instantly as she switched into a performance. She dropped to the ground, wailing loudly. "Oh my God! My husband! Somebody help me!" she screamed, running outside and calling for help. Neighbors rushed into the compound in confusion and panic. Some tried to revive Andrew, but it was too late. Others consoled Priscilla as she cried bitterly, tears that were nothing more than pretense. The heartbreaking news spread quickly. Andrew was dead. When David, their only son, heard of his father's death, he was devastated. He rushed home from school, his heart heavy with sorrow. The moment he arrived, he embraced his weeping mother and cried uncontrollably. He stayed by her side, consoling her, unaware of the dark truth she was hiding. Weeks passed, and the day of Andrew's burial finally came. Family, friends, and villagers gathered, and mourning the loss of a good man. As the coffin was lowered into the grave, David stepped forward, silent tears streaming down his face. In his hand, he held a small knife. "Daddy," he said through sobs, his voice trembling. "I am giving you this knife, take it, and fight for yourself. I know your death is not ordinary. Go and revenge." With that, he threw the knife into the grave. Little did he know that he just gave his late father a weapon to end his mother's life. A deep silence fell over the crowd. Some people looked at David with confusion, while others bowed their heads in sorrow. Her heart pounded violently in her chest. A chill ran through her body. She tried to keep a straight face, but her hands trembled slightly. She wished she could stop her son from what he just did, but doing so might raise suspicion. So, she forced herself to cry louder, hiding her discomfort behind fake tears. Inside, however, fear began to creep into her soul. The next day, Priscilla sat down with her son in the sitting room, her heart still troubled by his words at the graveside. "David," she said gently, "why did you do what you did yesterday at your father's burial?" David looked at her with calm determination. "Mommy, I did what I did because I know that Daddy's death wasn't ordinary. I want him to fight for himself, even in the afterlife." Priscilla swallowed hard, fear rising in her voice. "You should have left everything to God. He is the one who fights for us, not the dead. You shouldn't have thrown that knife into your father's grave." David smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Mother, God will still fight for us, and put our enemies to shame." Priscilla lowered her head. She couldn't say another word. Guilt and fear washed over her like a wave. She sat there, silent, ashamed and afraid. The following morning, David prepared to return to school. As he stood by the door with his bag, he turned to his mother. "Mother, please be strong for me," he said. "I know the death of father will make this house feel empty and lonely, but stay strong. You are all I have left in this world." Priscilla nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "I will be strong, my son. You can start going now before it gets dark." She watched him walk away, a lump in her throat, tears welling up in her eyes. David turned briefly, waved, and continued down the road with sorrow in his steps. But little did he know that the very woman he had just asked to stay strong was the one who had ended his father's life. As he disappeared from view, Priscilla shut the door and leaned against it, trembling. Shadows of guilt were beginning to follow her, and she couldn't run from them forever. Priscilla began to fully enjoy the benefits of the Widows' Club. Money flowed into her hands, and foodstuffs were delivered regularly. She no longer worried about managing life. Her wardrobe changed, elegant clothes, sparkling jewelry, and a brand new phone became part of her daily life. To the villagers, she looked like a woman finally rising from sorrow. But deep inside, she was hiding a terrible secret. One fateful afternoon, Priscilla sat comfortably in front of her house, scrolling through her new phone, humming with satisfaction. The sun was warm, and the air was peaceful. Suddenly, a cold chill swept over her. She shivered and looked up, and her heart nearly stopped. Standing a few feet away was her late husband, Andrew. But this was not the gentleman she had once known. This was his ghost, angry, furious, and holding a knife. Priscilla's phone slipped from her hand. She gasped, her voice shaking. "Oh my God, Andrew. You are dead. Please, please, I'm so sorry. Don't kill me, please." But the ghost did not speak. His eyes burned with rage, the pain of betrayal, the cruelty of his death, all written on his ghostly face. Before she could scream again, the ghost raised the knife and, with one swift motion, stabbed her. She fell to the ground, lifeless. By the time neighbors rushed out after hearing her scream, they found her lying in a pool of blood, alone. There was no sign of anyone else, just the lifeless body of a woman who had thought she could escape justice, but justice had found her. A few days later, the heartbreaking news reached David. His mother was dead. He cried uncontrollably, overcome with sorrow and confusion. First, he lost his father, and now his mother. It was too much for his young heart to bear. Without delay, he traveled to the village for her burial. As he watched her body lowered into the ground, he felt completely alone in the world. Both his parents were gone, he had no one left. After the burial, David sat quietly under a tree near the compound, staring into the distance. Thoughts flooded his mind. What will I do now? How will I continue my education? There was no one to care for him. No one to pay his school fees. They had already sold the only land his father had, just to support him. Now there was nothing left, nothing, except his father's house, but he couldn't bring himself to sell it. With a heavy heart, David came to a painful decision. I have no choice, I will have to quit school and return home. The next morning, David returned to the city. He walked into his hostel, packed his belongings in silence, and said goodbye to the life he once knew, the dreams, the lectures, the friends. Tears filled his eyes as he boarded the bus back to the village. A new, uncertain chapter had begun in David's life. Back in the village, David refused to give up on his dreams. Though life was hard, he was determined to rise again. He began doing small jobs around the village, anything honest to earn a living. He worked on local building sites, helped villagers on their farmlands, fetched water for the villagers, and gathered firewood to sell. There was no job too small or too difficult for him. His plan was simple: save enough money to return to school and finish what he had started. Months passed. Through sweat, discipline, and sacrifice, David managed to save a good amount of money. He packed his things and returned to school, hopeful and focused. Even as he resumed his studies, he didn't stop working. After lectures, he would take up small jobs, cleaning, loading goods, or helping at construction sites, just to support himself and pay his school fees. Many nights, he slept with an empty stomach, but he never gave up. Years passed. And finally, after all his dedication and hard work, David graduated from the university with flying colors. No one knew the pain, the loss, and the silent battles he had fought to reach that moment. David smiled with tears in his eyes. He had fulfilled the dream his parents once hoped for. Let David's story remind every young person, no matter what life throws at you, never give up on your dreams. Even when he lost everything, David worked hard, stayed focused, and achieved success. Keep believing, keep trying, your determination will lead you to greatness. Priscilla's story teaches us that greed and lack of contentment can lead to destruction. If she had appreciated what she had, she wouldn't have lost everything. Be content, be patient. True happiness doesn't come from deceit or shortcuts, but from hard work and dedication. Thanks for watching, and also subscribe for more stories.